Okay, we have 1 minute. But we need a few more commissioners, so.
Chair Doherty, in advance of the formal commission meeting commencing, I will have one minor correction to the agenda.
Okay, when we get to that part, we'll just add that to the add or subtract to the agenda.
Perfect.
Director Nguyen, were there any commissioners that said they couldn't be on today?
No, Chair, there were not. As a matter of fact, Commissioner Quinn was on our hearings this morning, so I know he's around.
Okay,
Karen, do you want to try to ping them and see if they're joining?
because Commissioner
Oh.
Kant on,
Yes,
and
we need at least 3.
we have 2.
I'm here.
Yep.
Hello, everyone.
Hello there. Well, we have 2.
Madam Chair, if I could, just for a minute while we're waiting, convey a message to Rod Lowe.
Sure.
Now, we
Yeah.
now are the 57 or 8 futurity original nominees,
Well,
trying to figure out how to do this.
What?
yeah, for sure. That's great.
What?
We're up to 57 or 8.
Chair Doherty, we now have a forum.
Okay, great. Okay, with that, I call to order the Oregon Racing Commission meeting for Thursday, March 21st, 2024. Karen, could you do a roll call, please?
Okay, roll call for today's hearing or today's meetings. Margaret Doherty, Chair Doherty, sorry about that. Strike that.
Okay.
I got a little brain fog going. Okay. Chair Doherty,
Here.
Commissioner Condi,
Present.
Commissioner Barry,
Present.
Commissioner Beckstead, Commissioner Fowler.
Okay, well, we have 3 out of so we've got a quorum. And I'm sure the other ones will be on in just a couple of minutes. So the first thing we have is the approval of the meeting agenda. Are there any additions to today's agenda? Representative or Commissioner Nguyen, Director Nguyen.
I went from a representative to a commissioner to a director. I'm all over the map. Except like me, Chair Doherty. We have one minor correction. Micah's name should be spelled M-I-C-A-H. It's not Mitcha, it's Micah, for the record.
Okay, that is corrected and duly noted. We'll just call him Mr. Lloyd. How's that? Okay, so with that, we go on to the February minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes as they were presented? Okay, are there any of the commissioners, are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, minutes are approved as printed and presented to us. Next is old business, director's report. First of all, before we do that, welcome everybody. Now that it's still, I don't know, up here in Portland, it's not raining, but hopefully you all enjoyed the nice, beautiful weather. So, excuse me, in Tigard, it's not raining. I don't know what it's like in Lake Oswego, Commissioner Condi.
Cloudy with
Yeah.
a chance of rain, but we did enjoy those sunny days.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, let me go ahead and begin my report. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Good afternoon, Chair Doherty, Vice Chair Barry, and esteemed commissioners. My name is Connie Nguyen, serving as the Executive Director for the Oregon Racing Commission. First, I wish to draw your attention to the upcoming deadline for the Statement of Economic Interest Report. And Chair Doherty, that's what
SEI.
SI stands for. I had to look it up. Required by the Oregon Ethics Commission, due no later than April 15th. If you have not received correspondence regarding this matter, please reach out to Karen Parkman for assistance. Following the conclusion of the 2024 short session, I am pleased to report that no legislative measures were passed that would negatively impact the operations of the Oregon Racing Commission. Nevertheless, we are actively gearing up for the 2025 session. In the ongoing month, we are engaged in the recruitment process for 2 pivotal positions within the organization. One, the chief investigator. Chris Adams has resigned to pursue a law degree. We're extending our best wishes to him in his future endeavors. We are fortunate to have several commendable candidates vying for this role and anticipate finalizing the selection process by month's end. A heartfelt thank to Mike Gentile, our investigator, for stepping in to support us during this transition. We also have a position as a test barn worker. Regrettably, one of our seasoned staff members, Michelle Shirey, is unable to continue due to relocation constraints. We're actively seeking a replacement and have promising candidates in consideration. Michelle's contributions will sincerely be missed. As a reminder, our ORC meeting in April will be conducted in person in Portland, Oregon, and we are eagerly anticipating reconnecting with you all then. Lastly, I'd like to inform you that effective July 1, 2024, we have decided to transition to Microsoft Teams for our communication needs. This platform seemingly integrates with our existing technology and offers enhanced capabilities compared to Zoom. If you're unfamiliar with Teams, I encourage you to download it well in advance of our first meeting. We're providing a link to the software on our website's homepage. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of Director Nguyen? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much for the report. The next thing we have on this is the budget report, which is me. And the budget committee met a few weeks ago and just mostly got an update as to what things were like. And the budget forecast and the changes, what we did is we kind of look at the legislative aspect of it. And there was, during the legislature, there were no bans on greyhound racing. That bill did not pass. But there was also no 25% from the general fund going into the Oregon Racing Commission. We did lose one ADW, which was about a $40,000 hit. The others are pretty stable. And as it is right now, because this is the beginning of the 2-year biennium, we won't have to make any cuts. But the long session is coming up, and so we have to see what's going on. There was a very good request for hub funds from the Quarter Horse Association. And the recommendation was at this time, although it was important that the quarter horses, I don't want to say stepped in during the racing season to fill the slots. But at this time, we felt it was unwise to release hub funds at this time, not knowing really what the impact of maybe losing another ADW or whatever will take on. So that was a report. That's what we did in the budget committee. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, seeing none. We'll go on. Commissioner Beckstead, are you on yet? I haven't heard from, because the next thing.
Chair Doherty, I can fill in on his behalf.
Okay, and this was the best practices and strategic planning report.
The Best Practices in Strategic Planning Committee met, one of the topics that was added on to our list was aftercare for horses. We discussed the fact that this really isn't something that the ORC can be directly involved in. We can support it. And individuals such as Otoba have an interest in helping funding more initiatives for this in the future if funds are available. Other than that, we reviewed and discussed the best practices, the strategic plan, which we'll be talking about later on in this meeting. And
Okay.
that concludes my report.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you very much, because we'll be spending some time, just a couple of minutes on the strategic plan. The next thing on the agenda is,
Director Nguyen, Chair Doherty.
oh, yes.
I just heard from Commissioner Fowler. She's not going to be able to jump on. She had a pipe break in her house
Oh, my
and is
gosh.
having that repaired.
Okay, fine. Thank you so very much for letting us know. So
Yep.
if the minutes can reflect that Commissioner Fowler is excused. Okay. If there are no questions about the Strategic Planning Committee, which we will be talking about that in a minute. The next thing is to a further discussion on the rule amendment, which was OAR 462-160-0130, which were medications and prohibited substances. And there were some suggestions that were brought up with this, and they are in the packet. Director Nguyen, would you like to address the changes in this? Because one thing on this also for those that are on and those that are listening is that in the packet was a one-page summary as to what the changes were and what the suggestions were. So that is in your board packet.
That is correct. And I welcome Dr. Everman to step in. I will give the overview of where we were on there. And then if there's any further questions or if Dr. Everman has any additional input, I will turn it over to him. Basically, we were asked to do a one-page summary and provide our recommendations. We also reached out to some other veterinarians. I talked to former Commissioner Palmer, and a couple other veterinarians that requested to remain anonymous. And our findings and recommendations were that at this point, because it's too close now, we believe it's already too close to meet to make any changes whatsoever for the Butte. We would have liked to have changed it to 48 hours. Dr. Everman has some really great ideas on how we will communicate this over the summer, so we can potentially land that in the fall. The second piece is the LASIX. We recommend that there's a couple changes here. The one that's really important to remember is changing it from 4 hours to 3 hours. The problem with having it 4 hours out is we believe that you can actually give a lower dose if you can make it a little closer, and it's going to be more impactful if it's closer to the actual race. So instead of 5 hours to 4 hours, bring it to 4.5 to 3 hours, and then changing the dose to a maximum of 300. And because I'm not a doctor or a scientist, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Everman to fix anything I misstated and give his opinion on how we can properly communicate that out and some of the testing criteria that he's thinking about for the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Nguyen. Yes, I think you covered it pretty well. We're not going to change anything for the fair meets. I think that would be a problem because the fair meet personnel are not always available to communicate with. So at the fairs will be an excellent time to communicate with all the trainers and tell them that we will be changing the rule either for the fall commercial meet or for the 2025 meeting. In either case, and we'll have consultations about that during this later spring and summer. But in either case, we'll have ample opportunity to speak to all the trainers and to put it on the website so that everyone can see what changes we are envisioning. And I think it'll be beneficial. It'll put us more in line with all the other jurisdictions that are near to us. And I just attended the regulatory veterinary meeting in Santa Anita. And I learned a little bit to my surprise that there are 61 thoroughbred tracks in the United States, and 55 of the 61 are now HISA accredited. So we are a select group in Oregon, and there aren't many that are like us. So we need to keep that in mind and think about how we can make our rules similar to them, which that's what we're doing. Even if we cannot financially afford to join them at this point in time.
Okay.
Dr. Everman, just to clarify, when we had talked before, you had recommended that we go ahead with the changes in the LASIX, but not go ahead with the Butte changes. Is that not correct anymore?
No, that's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. I thought we had already done that, actually. I thought that rule had been changed.
Yeah, no, they need to come back to this committee just so they can make a vote on if they agree or not.
All right, well, I do think that everything that you stated is stated very well, actually, and that it is going to help the horses and the horsemen to change it to 3 hours prior to racing rather than 4 hours prior to racing. And it's going to give a larger window. Instead of 1 hour, we're looking at 1.5 hours. So the attending veterinarian will have a larger window to work with. And getting closer to the race with the LASIX will make it more effective for the horse during the race.
And
Okay.
I would like to follow up with one other thing, that we need to hold all public comments until the end, unless you choose to open up for public comment now, which with the amount of public comment we've already had on these, I do not advise.
Okay. So where are we with this? Because the recommendation that was made, at least in the packet, was that three things. We educate the horsemen and women over the summer and the fall meet, run quantitative Butte analysis on horses to assist with the education, and file rules after the fall race meet in mid-October. Because maybe changing the rules right now would not be a timely thing to do.
File the fall rules for the Butte currently, not until October, but for the LASIX, Dr. Everman believes that since this is something that's administered by the veterinarians, that there's no reason to have the advance notice. Is that correct, Dr. Everman? And
that is correct. And also a good point on this is that really we're not changing anything other than letting them give it a little closer to the race time. Because when I looked over the LASIX programs that were submitted by the administering veterinarians, I did not see any that were receiving more than 300 milligrams of LASIX. So it's actually not going to be a functional change for the veterinarians. It's going to make it easier for them, make a smaller window of the amount of LASIX they can give. They need to give at least 150 so we can detect it, which is 3 cc's. And so that they will be going up to 300 milligrams, which will be 6 cc's. So it'll just be a little bit smaller window, but they're already using that framework. So I don't think it'll be a big change or will affect the veterinarians at all.
Okay. Dr. Everman, just two things really quick. Dr. Everman, can you talk about the testing you're going to offer this summer, number one, for the baseline? And number two, I think Chair Doherty, we are going to need a motion to go forward with the rulemaking process for the LASIX after that.
Yes, we will, because I was going to say, Commissioner Conde or Barry, do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner.
I do have a few questions. I more with the dosage aspect than the timing. I agree 100%. I've read the literature that is peer reviewed and out there, supporting administration of LASIX 3 hours before rather than 4. But I think I heard two different things, and I just want to be clear on what we're moving or voting on. One thing is 300 micrograms. Another thing is someone said 3 cc's, and it's not the same. So what's the CCs that are going to be allowed?
So I
Yeah,
can clarify
administered.
that. All the Lasix formulations that are available right now commercially, the drug is called furosemide, and it's 50 milligrams, not micrograms, it's 50 milligrams per cc. They need at least 150 milligrams to be administered to the horse in order for the laboratory to be reliably accurate in detecting it. If the person says the horse has had this, the laboratory has to be able to detect it. And then the maximum amount would be 300 milligrams, which would be equivalent to 6 cc's. Interestingly, almost all the veterinarians who submitted programs to me did not write their administration down in milligrams, but rather wrote it down in cc's.
Right.
So one is a volume measure, the other is the amount of the drug. So if the drug was available, for example, in 100 milligram per milliliter or cubic centimeter, cc, a milliliter and a cubic centimeter are the same thing.
Correct.
So we don't want to use those because the drug concentration in the product administered can be changed, although commercially I don't see it available right now. But we want to stick with milligrams administered in our rule and stay away from the cc's. Even if the veterinarians want to write cc's down on the program, then we have no problem with that. That's going to be from 3 cc's as a minimum, so the laboratory can detect it, up to a maximum of 6 cc's, which would be 300 milligrams. And I did not see, I think I saw one horse that got 7 cc's, but it's not going to be a big change for the attending vets. And I can easily talk to all of them very quickly before they administer the Lasix. And we can have a grace period on that. It's not a big thing because the Lasix does not have a big effect on the horse.
Okay. Commissioner, was your question answered?
Yes, I don't know if I agree with the last statement that Lasix doesn't have a huge effect on the horse. I think that's a point of contention in the scientific community, but I do appreciate the clarification because at one point I thought the proposed rule wanted to limit Lasix to 3 cc's under the usual concentration that we find in the market. So it changes things a little bit now that I'm sure that what we're doing is limiting it to 6 cc's, not 3.
Okay, so you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Other question, Commissioner Barry, do you have any questions?
No, I'd just like to thank Dr. Everland for that flashback to high school chemistry and wonder if we're going to convert to moles later on.
Thank you. I was having a little bit of that flashback myself going, oh my gosh, are we supposed to be doing milk? Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is something that we need to move. And so for my understanding is that we are educating the horsemen, running the quantitative in Butte, and we're going to file rules after the, Connie, what do we need to move?
Right now, we need to move, we need a motion to go forward with the rulemaking process for Lasix only.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so do we have a motion to go ahead with the rulemaking process on Lasix only? Is that,
I will make a motion to go forward with the rulemaking process on Lasix only.
thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you. I think you two gentlemen will be doing a lot of motions and seconds. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we can vote, please. We want a roll call on this? Or just raise our hands. If you vote to pass the motion, please raise your hand, commissioners. Okay, so it's unanimous. The 3 of us vote on that one. Okay, moving on, the next thing with new business is the review and discussion, discuss approval of the strategic plan. And one thing, just kind of a preface, just because we don't have 2 commissioners here, I would also like kind of this is just a beginning, is to have the strategic plan discussed even more, hopefully at the April meeting, so we can have a little more input and so on and questions from the commissioners. But with that, Director Nguyen, if you could go through and talk a little bit about the strategic plan, because it is very good and very detailed with what we need to go forward with.
Sure. First, if Malia's on, could you please give me access so I can share my screen?
Yes, give me 1 second to scroll through and find you at the top of mine. There you go.
There you go. Okay. There
All
we go.
right. So you should all be able to see this, and this is in the packets too, especially since we will be going over this again in April. Which we need to determine if we're going to approve it or not in April, because this has to be in our budget packet. That is one thing new. I'm just going to talk really about the vision, mission, and values, and who we talked to about this. At the end of this, you'll see some SMART goals. I think that's something that we should probably would be good to discuss that portion in the April meeting. So we have everybody there for it. Oh, see, I went a little too far. This is the negative thing about having everything in one packet. So we've gotten a lot of feedback on this from different stakeholders. We unfortunately were not able to get any feedback from the tribes, but we have tried. We have gotten it from several other committees, government agencies, even our IT folks gave us some feedback on it, as well as the Horseman Group. And I want to thank everyone and all the staff who worked on this with us. The vision that we have is, again, we have to separate us from the industry a little bit on this because we are a regulatory body. So the Oregon Racing Commission is a go-to source for industry-respected regulations, customer-focused processes, and empowered excellence in racing. That is our vision. I'd like to see if there's any comments or questions or concerns or what you think about that as a vision for this commission.
Okay, since we can't see the people because of the overlay, commissioners, if you just want to just speak up if you have any questions, okay?
No thoughts?
Yeah, no questions so far. I think I agree with the vision that we are communicating to the public.
Okay, great. And the vision or the mission, the Oregon Racing Commission is dedicated to promoting the highest standards of safety and integrity within the equine racing industry, both on ground and online. Our mission is to safeguard the welfare of the athletes, both human and equine, with a steadfast commitment to the best interest of our citizenry, licensees, participants, and the economy.
Okay.
Concerns, questions?
I'll just say, I went through the document and I thought it was very good throughout, so.
Great.
That's
And
fine.
I'm just going to highlight the area of our values. I'm not going to go into them. Obviously, welfare, health, and safety, that's of everyone, the athletes, the staff,
Frozen.
anyone who's working on it. Public confidence, integrity, regulatory excellence, transparency, support of the economy is huge, customer service, the equine history in the state of Oregon, and then, of course, our equity statement. And I believe that's really all we need to cover right now. Hopefully, like you mentioned, you've had a chance to go through it. And do you have any questions on it? Otherwise, we'll defer the rest to our future meeting.
Director Nguyen, I just want to be clear on something that you mentioned in the beginning, that the tribal input was sought and we did not receive any response. I want to make sure that we followed that tribal communication policy that has been established for a couple years now. And do we have the receipts, sort of speak?
Let me, I call on our Director of Mutuals, who's also our tribal liaison, to discuss his process for attempting to receive communication on that.
Thank you, Director Nguyen. And yes, Commissioner Conde, prior to reaching out to the tribes, I reach out to LCIS, the government agency responsible for the ongoing communication, government to government communication with the tribes, and I received updated contact instructions from them and followed those instructions on my communications out to all the tribes. The updated list included all of the emails of who to reach out to, who to CC, etc. And I have all those receipts.
Thank you.
That concludes my report on that.
I think we may have lost Chair Doherty.
It looks like we did.
Sort of important.
Guess what, Commissioner Barry?
We no
You're up.
longer have a quorum. There's
The
no
time
further-
has
Oh,
come.
we don't have a quorum anymore. That's true.
No, for sure.
Oh, boy. Yeah, we can't do anything right now.
Can we get Chair Doherty
can-
on the phone?
Yeah, Karen, you're up. Try to get a hold of her and see if we can get her back on.
Saved by the quorum rule.
right before my report.
Maybe it was intentional.
She's just had enough of us all.
She's like, okay, I can't. That's what happens. You know, the vision statement is just too boring for her.
I like that the document speaks to our values. I think it's implied, but the only change I might make would be to add fun as one of the values explicitly.
What was
Although I
it?
don't know how appropriate that would be. Just to add fun as an explicit
fun.
value, but I don't know if that would fly.
You know, that's funny that you mentioned that. Me and my husband, when my kids were young, all came up with our value statements, and they were fulfillment or faith, depending on how you want to look at it. Family, fun, fitness, and finance. The 5 Fs. But fun is definitely got to be in there. All right, back to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm back. I was off for a while, and thank you, Xfinity. We're having a little problem with it here, so I'm back.
All right, so we are now done with the discussion on the strategic plan, and we will not make any approvals on it at this time. And I turn it back over to our chair.
Thank you. Now that she is back into the world. Okay, that was good. I appreciate the strategic plan outline, and I think it's something that's so very important. And I agree with Commissioner Conte that the transparency and communication is very important, and that seems to be one of the mainstays of the strategic plan. So I like that. Okay, the next thing is the spring meeting report. Micah, Mr. Lloyd, if you want to give your report.
Thank you, Chair Doherty, Vice Chair Barry, Commissioners, and Director Wynn. I attended the ARCI, or Association of Racing Commissioners International, annual conference in Columbus, Ohio 2 weeks ago. It was March 6th through the 8th, 2024. I found the meetings to be well attended and have summarized my key notes or takeaways on a per topic or committee basis. Starting with the Quarter Horse Racing Committee, the AQHR shared their proposed rule on tow grabs, a topic that was brought up in one of our subcommittees. Their recommendations were based upon their polling of different jurisdictions and tracks to find a common denominator. I shared the proposed Oregon rule under consideration, which notes maximums of 2 millimeters in the front and 4 millimeters in the rear. They took those under advisement, but said that they will be staying with their proposals. Our recommendations are slightly more restrictive. They agreed that it was appropriate for the forelimbs to have shorter lengths in the rear. The AQHA has begun the transition to microchips in place of lip tattoos to identify racing American quarter horses, and that was effective January 1st of this year. The Safe Horses First briefing, that was an update on animal welfare matters, current research and industry challenges. The key takeaway was their current focus on technology, specifically reviewing proposals for wearable detection devices and the technology's goals of providing a large window of opportunity to detect potential issues in our equine athletes. The next panel was on after the racing is over, the equine aftercare. There were representatives from standardbred, quarter horse, and thoroughbred aftercare organizations. They shared their ongoing commitment to transitioning the equine athletes to a post-racing life. The actions and success stories were inspiring. An additional conversation was held with a representative of the National Thoroughbred Alliance, and their goal is to further engage operators and owners, not just regulators. The ARCI Model Rules Committee meeting discussed a recommendation that was made and discussed regarding modifying the steward accreditation rule, expanding it to allow for an ARCI approved accreditation program in addition to the Racing Officials Accreditation Program, or ROPE, that is exclusively noted in the rule. Our ORC rule wasn't as restrictive and states that the steward may be required by the commission to be accredited and current with the ROPE. New developments in Racing Integrity and Investigations Committee. I learned from multiple jurisdictions recommendations on how they handled tip lines. I have notes on freedom of information and public record requests and how they are handled as part of the anonymous reporting. I also learned of some vendor options and we'll be following up on those. There was a panel on the marriage of horse racing and sports betting. I made some integration and auditing notes that I will be able to build on, as many of our ADWs have expressed wallet integrations, either with their parent company or with third-party agreements. Proper planning is necessary to ensure that our auditing requirements are met. The Drug Testing Standards and Practices Committee discussion was an informal meeting. No actions were taken. Discussions were had regarding environmental contamination and how these are usually trace transfers from humans. Tracking down those contaminations may necessitate follow-up and drug testing of barn and additional staff to find the sources. Think of, like meth or cocaine or something that one of the grooms, or somebody has touched a horse that they had done themselves. Finally, the commissioners from the Indiana Horse Racing Commission specifically sought me out to extend their thanks and gratitude to the Oregon Racing Commission for our ongoing auditing and monitoring of the ADWs who hold primary license through us, and assisting them with any questions regarding those ADWs. That was a nice thing for them to do, and it was appreciated. That ends my summary report.
Okay, are there any questions, Mr. Lloyd?
Very briefly, Mr. Lloyd, I think with the information that you gathered in that meeting, perhaps an ADW subcommittee meeting should be appropriate in the future months. Do you think you are going to be able to have a full report, recommendations, and all that for April, or should we consider it for May?
I can pull some stuff together in advance of April. I think that would be appropriate.
Ms. Nguyen, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think we're overdue anyway, and we can report on the annual review and where we are on the process of that as well.
I just know it's spring
Been a
break,
while.
and I don't want to
Yeah.
put too much pressure on Micah to have a report by April. But so if May is better, we can do it in May. I don't think it's supremely urgent, but I think we should get together and discuss what happened in that meeting further.
I think it would be nice, Commissioner Condi, to do it in April since we'll all be together. So we
Yep.
will work with you on an appropriate time, either before or after the April meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Good suggestions. Great suggestion. Any other comments, questions? Okay, it looked like you had an awful lot to cover and a lot to learn during that spring meeting. We appreciate that, but I think the report and the idea that we'll be able to talk face to face on the ADWs will be very, very helpful. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is to request permission to begin the rulemaking process for the following rule filings, which we've all received. And one amends funding and the other deals with a necropsy. Did I pronounce that correct?
Close enough.
Yes, the animals with
Autopsies.
Okay, Director Wynn, you want to go over those?
Sure. The request to begin the rulemaking process for the necropsies and the funding types. The necropsies, we had some really good feedback from the industry, and I believe that the rule we have now works for everyone. And I want to thank the industry for all of their assistance with that. I'd also like to thank Dr. Lombard for her assistance on that, as well as Dr. Everman, who took a lead on it, of course.
Okay.
The other one amends, just requires the ADWs to request permission before changing any funding operations, which is assumed anyway because it's part of their plan of operation. We just wanted to make it a little more formal since there is so much going on with shared wallets and other things with the influx of sports wagering, that we make that requirement extremely clear. And that's it. They're pretty easy, and they will go through the regular process. The funding types, I don't see a need for a hearing on that one. The necropsy will probably, just to be safe, do one on that.
Right. So do we need a formal motion or just the idea? Are there any commissioners that object to this? And if there aren't, then please begin the rulemaking process on those two issues.
I believe that we need a
motion.
A motion.
Okay. Could we have a motion to begin the rulemaking process for the two for amending funding and necropsy? Or
I make a motion that we begin the rulemaking process for the rule filings under item 9.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's been
I'll
moved
second.
by Commissioner Berry, second by Commissioner Conte. All those have any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, passed unanimously. Okay, the next thing is the discussion and possible adoption of proposed rule filings. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, about 7 of them, and there are some that have some changes have been proposed. So Director Wynn, do you want to go through of the 2, 4, 6, 7 that we have?
Sure, I will go through the changes that were submitted before the hearing, and then I will turn it over to Commissioner Quinn to discuss additional recommendations that came in during the hearings today. And I think we can do these all at once. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and I think we're all in good shape. They are in the packet, but I would like to outline the ones that do have some changes and what the changes are. So the first one is 462.150.0060K. Our attorney said that we forgot to put the letter K on one, so we did that. That was easy.
Yep.
In addition to that, we did do a little changing with the language to make it a little more clear. This is the one that Mr. Lloyd was discussing about the plate amendment. Racing plates must, this is the final language we came up with, racing plates must be of a type and design approved by the Board of Stewards and the Commission veterinarian. No traction devices are allowed on the forelimbs or other than mud nails and toe grabs measuring 2 mm or less. Toe grabs in the hind limbs shall not exceed 4 mm dot, period. Traction devices include but are not limited to bends, jars, cocks, and stickers. The next one is 462.140.0250. We had no public comment before the hearings on that. That was for the starting gates, other than the language that was in your packet. And that was to clarify the use of the tail bar that now reads, the starter gate shall ensure all assistants are properly trained in the safe and appropriate handling of the horses, including but not limited to leading, packing, heading, and tailing procedures. Our attorney asked us to change they to the starter. So we made that change. Shall also ensure the use of tailing bars if equipped or other apparatuses for wrapping tails greater than 90%, 90 degrees is strictly prohibited.
Okay, commissioners, as Director Wynn's going through these, if you have any questions or whatever, feel free to ask them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
The
continue.
next one is intra-articulation injections. We had no comments or additional requests before the hearings on that. That is one that we filed some time ago and changes it to 30 days prior to a race. The next one is 462-160-0120, which is shock waves. Again, this changes it from 10-day period to 30-day period prior to a race. We had no public comment or input prior to the hearings on that. The next one is 462-220-0020 geolocation. We did have a couple minor requests which we support. One is to take out the word and add or and remove geolocation because that's a very specific type, and just put in technology, just keep the technology or methodology in there. And then add in the words that confirms wages are placed from jurisdictions.
Okay. And that was amenable to everybody.
Yes, and the only other one, the testing amendments, there was an extra period that we needed to remove. And now I will turn it over to Commissioner Berry to talk about all the feedback we had during the hearings this morning.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner Berry.
I think the staff has done a very good job at writing sensible, uncontroversial amendments, because there was no public comment whatsoever during the hearing.
Okay, that can be a good thing. It just means that things were covered. And I also love that there are grammarians that are correcting the grammar and the punctuation. So I appreciate that. Okay, are there any questions about the 2, 4, the 6 that proposals that have been brought forth?
I don't have,
Commissioner
I don't have,
Conti?
I don't have a comment on the merits of any of those. I support them. I'm happy that we didn't get any pushback. I did see something that I should have caught earlier in the process, that it doesn't affect and it will not affect my vote if a vote is required now, but that I will once again voice and caution the commission on the rule that ends on 0120, the shockwave. One of the reasons for adopting was communicated as to bring it in alignment with HISA. I have said before, and I will say it again, I admire the spirit of HISA, the intentions of HISA, but the implementation and the substantive approach of HISA is abhorrent and is the #1 threat to horse racing, in my view. The implementation, not what they want to do, but how they are doing it. I would caution the commission to expressly say that we're following HISA in any way, because HISA is changing quick, and attacks to the regulations of HISA are seen in court every day. So I think from a legal standpoint, I want this record to be here for future use, that the commission has not adopted the policy of just mirroring HISA and come into an alignment with HISA, but that if they have a good rule, we'll adopt it because it is a good rule. And I just wanted to make that point even more clear for the record.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and that we, as the minutes will reflect the intent behind your comments and in relation to the line that is in that the line that is in the shockwave rules.
Thank
and
you,
I
Chair.
appreciate that. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Lowe, is that?
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know how my wife's name got up under my picture, but
I did notice I didn't call
maybe,
her Alex.
yeah, I know. Maybe Karen can fix that or something. I don't know how it got up there, but I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend the rulemaking session discussions, but my only comment is on the plate amendment because of what Mike had just commented on earlier. And the Quarter Horse Association or Quarter Horse Racing is not part of HISA in the first place. But I know we're trying to get a standard plate recommendation for all racehorses. But my question is have we questioned that since the quarter horses are not, Quarter Horse Racing Association, the AQHA is not in alignment with our plate recommendations if we've considered having a quarter horse plate recommendation or a rule versus a thoroughbred one, because they are not in a line with each other.
Okay, is there somebody who can answer that question?
First of all, we are technically beyond the comment period for this. I would call on Kelly to talk about if it's even appropriate for us to be discussing this at this point, since we're beyond that.
Kelly with Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Kelly Rout with the Department of Justice. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I mean, the comment period has closed. Ultimately, it's up to the commission if they want to answer the question or not, to take further comment. And then it would have to be put into the rulemaking record. So it's really ultimately at your discretion. So you don't, because there is that comment period where people, even if they can't attend the hearing, can submit written comment. So there's no need to discuss it further, but if you want to, there's nothing stopping.
And my only concern about bringing this up, Rod, is because we didn't take public comment on the last one, because we're not under the public comment. We don't have public comment until the end. So we're allowing you to kind of skip in when we didn't let Dr. Lombard step in.
Sorry
with that said, I will say that I wish Mike was on. I don't know where he went. I thought he was on earlier. He's the one that came up with this rule, and we feel like we've done a really good job of communicating this out to everyone. I do know that there was some talk from the quarter horses of changing it to even higher than what any jurisdiction I know has. I know that Indiana has a rule that is identical pretty much to what we have here. And they run quarter horses, as I understand, and they specifically mention it for quarter horses. So we thought that we were doing a very good job of being extremely open on this and broad. However, with that said, since we have opened this can of worms now, let me go back to Micah and see what if he has any other comments since he was at the meeting. And then we could recommend to hold it off for another month for additional public comment if you want. I'm not aware of anyone who has racehorses that I've heard of. They're running higher than that, than the link.
And I would like to.
Yeah, I would actually, if we're gonna ask other people, I would love to hear from the Nelsons on, have you heard of anyone who in the area who's running a horse with that's bigger than the 2 millimeters in the front and 4 on the back. I'm just not aware of any, and I haven't heard of any, but I will go ahead and ask them since I don't have Mike to ask, and then I will refer over to Micah. And then you have a decision to make, Margaret, if we hold this one for another month or if we go ahead and file it.
Well, we could do that, but I want to make one thing clear is that if you guys are right, the public hearing or the public comment has closed. And so as with the audience, when we have public comments at the end, I think that would be the place for you to bring them up. I apologize for that, but since it was brought up, we will make the decision whether to vote on all of the other 5 and then hold that one for a month and go on. So Mike, in fact, looks like Mike's on the line. So do you want to answer the question?
Oh, Mike, no, that's a different Mike. That's Mike Gentile.
Okay, never mind.
Too many Mikes and Micahs.
Okay, how about a Micah?
So,
Yeah.
Chair Doherty, the only reason I brought this up is because the Enlightenment, I just came from a quarter horse conference and I heard about this at the quarter horse conference. Micah heard about it at his conference that he was at a couple weeks ago. And so it's become if the quarter horse industry is keeping that as a standard, you know, I don't know. It's just under consideration for our racetrack because it is an AQHA standard that they're looking for versus the standard that we're trying to set.
Okay. Micah, do you have any comments?
I can share with you, Chair Doherty, the memorandum notes that came up in the meeting. They pulled different jurisdictions and tracks to see what rules govern their racing. They found a common denominator and they proposed the following. Quarter horse toe grabs. Front horseshoes on quarter horses may only have a toe grab that measures up to 4 millimeters, from the ground surface side of the shoe. Hind horseshoes shall not have a toe grab more than 1/4 of an inch from the ground surface side of the shoe. Subsequently, they did make a note that they were going to correct the changing units from millimeters to inches to be consistent. I believe 1/4 of an inch to be slightly more than 6 millimeters.
Okay. Commissioners, what do you see on this one? Why do we go through and hold this for at least a plate amendment? Is that going to be a problem to deal with that in April? Okay, so
No.
if it's not, are there any questions, commissioners, on the other 5 proposed rules?
No.
Okay, if not, I entertain a motion to accept the proposed rules filing on, and I'm going to read all the numbers, but it's actually B, C, D, E, and F on our agenda, but it's 462-140. In fact, those 5, and whoever wants to make the motion, if they want to go through and say what the numbers are, or I can repeat them again if you want me to.
I'll give it a shot.
Thank you, Rep. Okay.
I move for the adoption of the proposed rule filings under 462-140-0250A, 462-160-01106, 462-160-0120-3A, 462-220-0020, and 462-160-0140.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Is
I'll
there a
second.
second? Thank
Good
you.
job.
I was gonna say, is there any discussion, because the only discussion I have is your law professors would be very proud of you, sir. Able to get all of that. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we will vote on the motion. All those in favor of the adoption of what was proposed, those 5 rules, please raise your hand. Okay, passes unanimously. And so on 462-150-0006, 6-0, sub K. We will deal with that at the April commission meeting. Does that seem appropriate? Okay. With that, is there any public comment? Okay, Ms. Lombard, I see you, and then the Nelsons. Okay, Ms. Lombard, and then I have the Nelsons.
Chair Doherty, thank you for recognizing me. Dr. Lombard, I'm a sometimes commissioned vet and previous treating vet. I just want to thank everybody who has worked really hard on all the medication stuff, all our stakeholders, the commissioners, advisors, staff. You've done a really great job. I really want to emphasize that in addition to educating the horsemen and women, it's going to be really key with any changes in medication that the treating and attending vets get the education as well in any changes. Because not only are they the ones that are often administering the medications, they are often the go-to for the horsemen and women and the intermediary between the commission and the horses on the ground. So I just want to hope that you guys will really spend some time educating the treating and attending veterinarians, because they are all different, all these different race meets. Some of them are just show up at the different small meets and they're not regular racetrack vets. So if we're changing things, that's going to be really key to keeping everybody happy and healthy as always, but also within regulations. So please continue that as much as we can.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lombard. I apologize for not doing that. I couldn't see the DMV on the thing. So thank you, Dr. Lombard. Next comment, the Nelsons.
Do you want to go, or what are you?
You go ahead, and then I'll
I just had one thing that I wanted to share. Rod and Dave and I were at the American Quarter Horse Association annual meeting just this last week, and the chipping of quarter horses of course is a big thing, and we are working together, Rod and I, on getting our horses chipped, particularly the 2-year-old. And so we're in the process of talking to somebody that seems to be willing to come and do that. And then we'll also be working with Mark Faulkner from Emerald Downs that will come down and do the reading and send everything to AQHA and take care of all the rest of it. So anyway, that's in the process. So we're hoping that to be all done before we start the union meet. And also I wanted to make one comment at the budget. It's concerning our request for that money that we spent last year. I want to make sure that everyone understands that that really is a backfill. It's really not new hub money. So it can probably come from some other source than necessarily hub funds, but I'm not sure that was real clear after the budget meeting. So I just wanted to make that comment. So
okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other?
Yeah. If I could have a comment or just on a couple of points, I would totally agree with Dr. Alice on her comments on medication rules. The medication rules seem to be evolving, and commission needs to make sure that they're being very attentive to what our ARCI is doing. I think I saw a notice of a change just over the weekend, and so it's something that you don't want to get too far ahead or too far behind what the new or latest information may be. Secondly, on toe grabs seem to be kind of a black art rather than a science, and there has been quite a bit of research done on leg vibrations as being a source of injury, with the sticking of the front legs more so than the hind legs. And then that seemed to disappear probably 10 years ago. And so they depend a lot on track conditions and what the track, if you're on a very sandy racetrack, or if you're on a muddy racetrack, or if you're, and I've seen trainers pulling nails out of freshly shod horses and putting very tall sticker nails on them that have a quarter of an inch long head on them. And so I think that needs a lot of looking into to see what may be appropriate for racehorses and what may not be appropriate. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, and there are no contested cases. The next commission meeting we have in person, which would be nice, because it's nice. I think a lot of you have not met in person. But the next commission meeting is scheduled for April 18th at 1:30 in room 1A of the Portland State, not Portland State University, but the state office building in Portland on Northeast Oregon Street. And that will be on April 18th. Anything else for the good of the order? Nurse, thank you very much for your time and your input. I appreciate it very much. And with that, I adjourn the meeting. See you all.